At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
You are about to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. You know, this drives me crazy. Where people demand something, you don't give it, and then they ruin your career. So this article caught my eye. Apparently, a micro-influencer on TikTok, somebody that doesn't have a lot of followers, maybe 15,000, just got a San Francisco chef fired because the chef was not going to give her free food. I don't know how the restaurant took her side and not his, but this is the type of stuff that happens. The food influencer is called It's Car Lab. She said she was left shaking after being invited to a collaboration with Bay Area wine bar Kiss Cafe. She thought she and her husband were going to get free meals. In exchange, she would promote the company on her channel. The creator said she arrived at the restaurant and the award-winning chef Luke Sung, according to Daily Mail, asked why was she there. She claims he disrespected her for only having 15,000 followers and said she was not at the level needed to represent his restaurant. In response, she said she aims to be an advocate for micro-influencers, where you don't need to have 1 million followers to be respected or feel like you're making a difference. And so this TikTok, I guess, got millions of views. She's now becoming more famous as a result. But really, you have to now give free food to somebody who has a TikTok channel? Now, you know, this whole social media influencer thing, I'm not on TikTok. I know I need to be. Everybody says I need to be. If you're in radio and you're syndicated and national, why aren't you on TikTok? It's exhausting. Between Twitter or X and Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, it's a lot. And I just want to do a good show. Whoever listens to my show, that's great. But I understand that the social media outlets allow revenue. They also allow more exposure. And I get that. Sometimes I do Facebook Live streams. Sometimes I don't. And to start over from TikTok, and then you got to start getting more followers. So the problem I had is with Instagram, I'm on my third account because it keeps getting hacked. And then I can't get into it. And I can't then delete my photos. I'm fearful of that. So I don't want to go on TikTok and then somebody hack my account and then put up videos that aren't mine. I'm very humbled and very non-trusting, distrustful of what could happen. I understand most people are on TikTok and they're doing okay, but I guess what people now do is they use that to take advantage. They get free meals. See, everybody thinks they're a star. They're like, I'm famous. Don't you know who I am? I'll run into somebody and they're like, I'm JKPRD. I'm like, nice to meet you. Can I grab the shopping cart behind you? You don't know who I am? I don't. I'm sorry. Do you know who I am? I'm Dr. Daliah. I did the Dr. Daliah show. No. Well, nice to meet you. Everybody thinks they're this big celebrity, this big star. And these companies are feeding into it because they want the exposure. Yeah, if somebody has 1 million viewers, all they have to do is give a meal, which is probably overpriced anyway, so they could probably do the meal for under $20, and they get a pretty good advertising option. But what ticks me off is how if somebody doesn't get their way, they badmouth them to the point where they got fired. This is a chef who was asked to give free time, free product, make his staff work, and who knows if the influencer would tip or not. You should, by the way. If you ever get anything free, you tip, not 20%, you tip like 50%. I mean, you tip good whenever something like that happens. And apparently the restaurant fires him as a result because of the backlash. This drives me crazy. I see this happen with doctors also. Chris Cafe said on Instagram that the chef Soon's behavior was unacceptable and he is no longer part of the team as co-owner, a chef in any other way. Really? A co-owner can lose his job over a micro-influencer? We're giving too much power to these people. And this is why people fear putting American flags up. I don't. I'll have an American flag all over the place. I love the American flag. But people fear the online backlash. And that can ruin their careers. I can't tell you how many doctors wanted to sue Yelp because they would allow ex-wives or ex-boyfriends or ex-workers to go on there and lie about the business and post bad reviews. And the bad reviews are the ones that get first seen as opposed to the good reviews. It's not fair. And we've allowed this world to exist where if somebody gets their feelings hurt because they can't get free food, they will ruin you and people will take revenge, and they will take revenge online. It's not cool. Look, sometimes I will, to warn you guys about a vendor, something that happened to me where, and I don't want that to happen to you all if there's a scam, etc. But I've been, disliked and disrespected by a lot of individuals. I don't go online and start calling them out. I'm a big girl. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Hi guys, Dr. Daliah here. Addictions can sneak up on us and come in many forms, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, video games, porn, or something less obvious such as food, internet, or shopping. Addiction can seem innocent at first and then evolve into an insurmountable evil. In our book, Addiction Basics, Caitlin Kalikas and I dive into the common addictions and provide tips for identifying and preventing these before they sneak in and take over our lives. Addiction Basics can be found on Amazon or my website, drdaliah.com. Check it out.
Increase fuel economy up to 7.9% with Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme, the solution to maximize your engine's performance and fuel economy. Whether you're driving a sports car or a daily commuter, Gasoline Extreme is specially formulated with PEA to deep clean. Don't settle for an average driving experience. Upgrade to Hot Shot's Secret Gasoline Extreme and go further on each tank. Order now on Amazon or HotShotSecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
Let's face it, guys, we're living in times where the truth is becoming more suppressed and censorship is increasing at an alarming rate, especially on social media platforms. It's Clyde, and I want to tell you about a safe and secure digital playground we put together just for you. It's Aftermath.media. You get access to thousands of Ground Zero archives and podcasts, along with our private social media groups with your basic membership starting at only $7 a month. Each subscription includes tech support, access to the RSS feeds, along with our own chat room and Telegram channel. In addition, the premium membership includes research study groups, webinars, a document and movie library, a live video stream of Ground Zero, a monthly Zoom chat with me, and other bonus content. Be sure to check out our yearly specials as well. Sign up today while you're thinking about it. Sign up at aftermath.media. Again, that's aftermath.media.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Dr. Dali, 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. Big thanks to Daniel, our producer, and big thanks to y'all for tuning in. We really do appreciate it. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter or X at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show, and on YouTube. Click like and subscribe. So the Health and Human Services Secretary, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., is going to be reopening a case that looked at an organ transplant organ procurement company not following all the proper protocols, and some patients allegedly not having the brain dead criteria prior to the authorization of organ procurement. According to a case which the Biden administration closed, the HRSA, or the Health Resources and Services Administration, found that there were 103 cases of 351, or 29.3%, showing concerning features where 73 patients had neurological signs incompatible with organ donation. 28 may not have been deceased at the time of organ procurement, raising ethical and legal questions. And then there was evidence pointing to poor neurological assessments, lack of coordination with medical teams, questionable consent practices, misclassification of causes of death, particularly in overdose cases. So one thing that has concerned people about this case is if you want to be an organ donor and there's not enough organ donors, there's not enough people that want to donate an organ, are you going to have a quicker route to death so companies can get your organs? Now, we in the medical community strive to ensure that that doesn't happen, that the decision to donate an organ is not even considered unless you are brain dead or on life support and in a coma and not having a good prognosis to come out of it. But people aren't buying that. The average American thinks that when you go into a hospital, the first thing they look at is if you're an organ donor. And the second thing they look at is if you are a do not resuscitate, or if they have to resuscitate. Now, people aren't wrong. When you check into a hospital, that is one of the first things they ask after your insurance and your name and date of birth and all that. They want to know. And the reason why is they don't want to resuscitate you if you don't want to be resuscitated. Or they want to know that you do want to be resuscitated. Those are important things for a hospital to know. But the vibe people are getting is that the hospital wants to know what type of work they need to do on you. And if you are DNR, do not resuscitate, they're, okay, that's good. Now, as a physician in the 90s, I saw some disturbing attitudes where I would be dealing with a patient and you would hear one nurse say to the other, oh, no, he's a DNR. All right, well, then I'll go into the other room. But the person didn't need resuscitation. It was their DNR. And I remember looking at this as a student going, whoa. You could have some staff that just seem to get biased when they see that. Going, well, if they're DNR, then I'll prioritize them differently. Now, hospitals aren't supposed to do that, and most healthcare workers don't. But I picked up on that in training, and that made me nervous. Now, on the flip side, We don't have enough hospital beds and hospital resources. So for the greater good, if you are in a coma for 6 months or brain dead, you're still taking that bed prevents us from being able to help somebody else. And so I understand why there's that need to really ensure that grandma and grandpa or your father or mother and your family members' needs are met. It's important for you to tell us what your wishes are. But people are kind of getting the feeling that they're not wanted. You know, I was asked to leave the maternity ward when I was in labor, not because I was misbehaving, but I was in 5 days of labor. And I wasn't progressing that quickly. And once the baby seemed stable, a nurse came in and said, Dr. Wax, look, we need the bed. Why don't you go home and come back when the contractions are a little bit more frequent? Now, I was told to come in because I had low fluid. I was there at the doctor's order. But a nurse asked me to go home to free up the bed. And I did. I was fine with that. Because I worked there. I know they could use the bed. And I wanted to see the dog. I was uncomfortable being away from my dog. And I am now on day 3 of labor. I came back a day and a half later, contracting every 6 minutes. But I was even asked to leave the hospital to open up a bed. And I was the only one leaving the hospital pregnant. All these other moms are leaving with their babies. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm still pregnant. I was asked to go home. So patients have gotten the feeling that they're not wanted and that their being alive is worse for the system than them being dead. And they're scared. They're scared in terms of organ donor. This worries me because I think a lot of people are going to rethink donating organs if they at all surmise that an unethical company could rush your demise or act too quickly to get your organs. Now, you could donate an organ alive when you donate a kidney, but we're talking about when you're brain dead. There was a study that came out a year or two ago where they looked at, I believe, a bunch of people who had been in accidents and who they thought were brain dead. And the study found that a good percentage of them didn't need to be pulled off life support. That a good percentage of them would have lived and had minimal neurological side effects if somebody took the time to wait. That's scary. And if you don't know how to tell people to not, just let you go, you could be gone too soon. Now, knowing me, I'm like, you need the bed, you need the resources. I've lived a good life. Here you go. But you need to really have conversations with your family. I'm hearing of cases where even if somebody has full resuscitate, I'm hearing of cases where before they're put on the life support, the family is spoken to, where like, look, they have cancer, they're not in pain right now. If you were looking for an opportunity to let them pass peacefully before they go back on life support and deal with more pain and more months of this might be a good opportunity to let them pass peacefully. And I'm hearing that people are talked into, families are talked into overriding and making the decision to let the family member go. Now, I told my family, God forbid something happens to me, they're going to be overwhelmed. And they're not going to know what to think. And they are going to listen to somebody who says, look, they're not in pain, they're at peace. This will be easier for everybody. And I told them, before you make any decision, I have a couple individuals for them to call to clarify any decision they're making emotionally. And these two are physicians who will hopefully go assess the situation and maybe put the halt on the no. Follow the living will, follow advance directives, do what the patient wants, and then we'll decide if we need to pull the plug. But when you hear of these cases, it's really frightening to people because you are the most important person on the planet. And you should feel that way. You're you. Yes, the world does revolve around each and every one of us. Why should you be a statistic? But on the other end, these hospitals are overwhelmed and they don't have enough beds. And so, even though every healthcare worker should be ethical, follow exactly your desires, not have any biases for those who are do not resuscitate, there could be some people not doing their job. And you need to make sure your family understands your wishes. 1-877 Doc Daliah.
At Hot Shot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems and their solutions. For example,
Diesel fuel cetane levels.
in many states, the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts. Due to a cleaner burn, there are less hydrocarbons and particulate matter in your exhaust. This reduces the blockage of your diesel particulate filter. Using Diesel Extreme generates 83% less DPF regeneration. The 6-in-1 Diesel Extreme formula also includes the most concentrated detergent on the market, lubricity enhancer, water demulsifier, rust and corrosion inhibitors, and a fuel stabilizer.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show, 1-877 Dr. Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So one thing we've learned in the last few elections is it's never too early to start planning for the next election and never too late to address issues in the election. Like we saw roughly 1 year ago this week when Biden was asked to leave the race. Surprised it took them that long to ask him to. And so you're going to see a lot of news looking at polls and who would be in the lead for the 2028. And I get it. Trump has only been in office for 6 months. I can't even imagine now looking at the 2028 election. But I think it is smart to. And Newsweek has reported that J.D. Vance is leading Democratic candidates. Vice President J.D. Vance has a narrow lead over 3 potential Democratic presidential candidates regarding surveys of the 2028 primary. It's an Emerson College poll, and it was released today. And he apparently, if the election was based on the limited numbers that they looked at, still, he would have a single-digit lead over former Transportation Secretary and Mayor Pete Buttigieg, California Governor Gavin Newsom, and New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Surprised she even polls at all. The poll surveyed 1,400 U.S. voters. They asked them July 21 and July 22nd who they would vote for. There was a margin of error of plus or minus 2.5 percentage points. And Buttigieg was held to the tightest margin. 44% backed J.D. Vance, 43% supported Buttigieg. Buttigieg fueled speculation that he might run. But Pete Buttigieg, he's likable, but did he do much as transportation secretary? So Ocasio-Cortez progressives like. She received 41% to Vance's 44%. Coming in the middle was Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom, was looking his chops at becoming the next president. Again, when you look at his record with California, I don't think he has a chance. But for people who love what he's done, then maybe. Now, J.D. Vance, this is interesting. If you are a Republican strategist, he needs some work. J.D. Vance is very, very smart. Doesn't have the likability factor as much as Trump, obviously. And one thing vice presidents need to do is be able to shine. But like we saw with George H.W. Bush and Ronald Reagan, you stay out of the way. You stay out of Ronald Reagan's way because he's popular and doing what needs to be done. Same thing with President Trump. And President Trump is so commanding, in terms of, his attention and in terms of what he's done. I mean, he's working. He's all over the place. That not a lot of people are going to believe that this is J.D. Vance's doing. So when good things do happen, such as the economy, inflation, prices going down, secure border, J.D. Vance basically has to promise voters that he's going to be a Trump 2.0. If there are things that Trump did that was unpopular, he could capitalize on that, but most of the things Trump's doing is pretty popular. Now, maybe not among Democrats, but among the base and among centrists and moderate Democrats. Liberal Democrats, they're not going to like anything Trump says. Even if it's putting up a new flagpole for an American flag. They found issues with that. Honoring a young child that battled cancer. Making him an honorary Secret Service deputy. That liberal Democrat, they didn't like any of that. But your moderate Democrats are like, look, the economy's getting better. Our 401ks are growing. I like that he's investing in crypto because our crypto accounts are going up. The border is secure. He's going to overhaul and try to protect Social Security and Medicare, no taxes on tips and Social Security. He's doing things that should have been done. Finding waste, fraud, and abuse. So J.D. Vance has to probably stick to those same principles. And he has to show that he was a part of it. Now, one thing Trump is doing is he's not having Vance on the sidelines. He is showing that Vance is in these meetings in terms of foreign. Vance is a smart guy. And so you are seeing a lot of him. He is a very active vice president. And it's going to be about the policies. And if these policies are working, and if Trump is actually bringing billions of dollars in from these other countries and limiting the amount of money we've been shelling out, I don't want to be an isolationist. We have to help Israel. We have to help other countries if we're in a position to. But why aren't other countries paying their fair share? Vance could be an easy win, especially up against somebody like Ocasio-Cortez. Vice President Kamala Harris, I do not think will run again for president. If she was unpopular in the presidential primary, the Democratic primary, and wasn't that popular a candidate this time around, it was more the anti-Trump vote. It's not that people loved what Kamala Harris stood for. Again, all she could say to Sonny Hostin on The View is, I can't think of anything I would do different. And I told you the answer she could have made. If I was Kamala Harris and I was asked, what would I do differently than Biden? I wouldn't throw Biden under the bus. I respect her for not throwing her employer under the bus. Remember, she's still employed. But she could have very easily answered. She could have said, look, the landscape, American landscape, I am going to be inheriting as the next president and the first woman president is going to be different from the current president. And the things I am going to want to tackle head on is X, Y, and Z. You could answer it like that. But I can't think of doing anything different. She doesn't know how to talk to the media. I see she was trying to not go against her. And it looked like it was a difficult job and the turning the page. We're going to turn the page. Again, what do you do when your boss sucks and your boss is not doing a good job? But you could say, look, we're all different in our own way. Well, my background as a litigator, is going to give me certain advantages. And I'm going to be using that to work with law enforcement, attorney generals. I mean, yeah, she did word salads. There's a whole bunch of things she could have said. But instead, I can't think of anything different. So somebody's going to pose that question to Vance. J.D. Vance, what would you do different than President Trump? Well, I would start by saying, look, President Trump has been out there. He's been across all the United States. He's been talking to people, seeing what they need. If I could improve on more tax cuts, if I could help bring more companies into America and continue the great work Trump started, I'm going to be doing the following. And just say it like that. I'm going to keep the border secure. We're going to make the immigration process airtight, where individuals wanting to come here legally still have that pathway. I'm going to do X, Y. There's a lot of things they can do, he could say. Because each person needs their own character. Vance cannot technically say he's a Trump 2.0. He's going to have to campaign that way. But what is going to be Vance-onomics? What is going to be the J.D. Vance era? And the J.D. Vance era is going to be an important one because he has the potential to be our president for 8 years. And I'm excited. He's young. He's smart. But he's going to have to convince people he's not going to wipe away progress Trump made. But he has his own flair. 1-877 Doc Daliah. Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
Have you ever thought you'd like to buy and sell houses but didn't know how or where to get the money? My name is Ron LeGrand, and over the past 40 years, I've bought over 3,000 houses without using my money or credit and taught thousands to do the same. Today, even in a virtual environment, we buy nice houses in nice neighborhoods using no banks, realtors, contractors, or other costly entanglements, and build huge cash flow and wealth without the hassle of tenants, all without credit and little or no money. You don't need a license or experience, and I'll show you exactly how it's done. Text FREE to 99799, and I'll send you my free training. I promise you I'll change the way you think about real estate and open the door to a new lifestyle that doesn't involve risk or rehabs and can quickly replace your current income. Text FREE to 99799, and let me show you how to take your life back and build cash flow and wealth from your home. That's FREE to 99799. Again, FREE to 99799.
As an organ donor, your story doesn't have to end. The good in you can live on. In fact, you could save up to 8 lives and restore sight and health for many more. Sign up right now online as an organ, eye, and tissue donor. You'll be happy you did, and just maybe someone else will be happy too. Go to organdonor.gov. It saves lives. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
On the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. I've never been to Hershey Park. We did get a hotel, and we were going to take the kids to Hershey Park for a vacation, but we were in, I believe, the area in April, and the park wasn't going to open for another couple weeks. I think it was either March, April. So I never got to go into Hershey Park. But we went to the Hershey Museum and the chocolate and all that. And I love Hershey's. It's delicious. Unfortunately, there was a tragedy where a 9-year-old died at the water park. We're being told that there was an incident in the Pennsylvania water park. According to a statement by John Lawn, CEO of Hershey Entertainment and Resorts, the unidentified child was visiting the boardwalk at Hershey Park, which is the water park, and became in distress in the water. The lifeguard team recognized that the child was in distress. They performed an immediate rescue. They did continuous coordinated life-saving efforts by the lifeguards, on-site first responders, and medical personnel. People magazine says that the young park goer was transported without delay to nearby Milton S. Hershey Medical Center. Unfortunately, despite everyone's tireless efforts, the child did not recover. We do not necessarily know the cause of death. We're assuming it's some sort of a drowning incident, but did he have a cardiac issue? Did he have laryngospasm? We spoke about dry drowning and secondary drowning. Dry drowning is where water gets into your vocal cords, can start laryngospasm. Water never gets to your lungs, but you could get vocal cord and then airway constriction, and you can have trouble breathing due to this reaction, and we call it dry drowning. Secondary drowning is where you get water into your lungs, you cough it out, you try to cough it out, but some still sits in there. Well, it starts to inflame the lungs because there's chlorine and other things in there. And then the lungs starts to make inflammatory fluid, and you end up drowning hours, days later from water getting into your lung. That's called secondary drowning. So I'm wondering if it was a dry drowning incident, but we'll know more. Apparently, the water park has 16 water rides and pools, multiple slides, a 378,000-gallon wave pool, a lazy river, waterfalls. It's a gorgeous water park. And they say, sadly, this child's death was one of a handful of fatal incidents. The park opened back in 1907. According to Lebanon Daily News, the last death at the park was in 1977 and involved a maintenance worker. I was at a water park in Altoona, Iowa. I was at Adventure Park. What's nice is those tickets include not only, tickets to the park, but also the water park. And my nephew and my son were horsing around, flipping me over. And I was just trying to enjoy the wave pool. And, luckily I didn't get hurt. Nobody got hurt. But I got to tell you, I see what kids do. God bless these lifeguards and trying to pay attention to everything going on. And unfortunately, events could happen. So I pray for the family to find strength during this horrible moment, and keep an eye on your kids, because unfortunately, when bad things happen, they happen pretty quickly. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. We're being told by CNN that thousands of mosquitoes are going to be dropped by drones over the Hawaiian Islands. Now, this happens a lot in terms of trying to manage the mosquito population. I know a lot of us got nervous because of what happened with Zika when there were mosquitoes being genetically modified in Brazil, because Brazil is one of the mosquito capitals of the world. And Zika followed. I'm not saying the genetically modification caused that, but a lot of people were concerned that the Zika outbreak happened roughly around the same time. But I can tell you that mosquito experiments are always happening. And in June, we're being told that dozens of biodegradable pods fell from the sky over the forests of Hawaii. Each one delivered by drone contained about 1,000 mosquitoes. And they weren't any mosquitoes. CNN says they were non-biting, lab-reared male mosquitoes that were carrying a common bacteria that results in eggs that will not hatch if the males mate with wild females. That will then slow down the propagation of baby mosquitoes. They want to control the island's invasive mosquito population that is apparently decimating native bird populations. The rare Hawaiian honey creepers. These birds are key pollinators and seed dispersers. They play a central role in Hawaiian culture. Apparently they're in dire straits. There used to be 50 known species. Now only 17 are left, most of whom are endangered. The Akiki small grade bird went functionally extinct. They say less than 100 of the yellow-green Akikis are estimated to remain. Now, you could deforest, but nobody wants to do that. These insects, by the way, are not native to Hawaii. This is why Hawaii was really careful during COVID. You know, you have an isolated group of exquisite islands, and travelers bring things. They say the insects were first reported back in 1826, unintentionally carried over by whaling vessels. Sadly, they caused waves of extinction. Mosquitoes love the warmer tropical habitats and the lower elevations of the Hawaiian Islands. So, honey creeper birds have found refuge higher up, but they say now with climate change, the mosquitoes are moving up the mountains. So we'll see what happens. Again, I don't like mosquitoes, but they do have a way in a lab to enable them from making progeny that won't necessarily live. And so because mosquitoes carry some really, really bad disease like Zika, dengue, malaria, I understand there's a role for mosquitoes, but mosquitoes are the bane of a lot of doctors' existence because of all the disease they carry. So I'm fine with people to do to start to limit invasive species such as this, but make sure you know what you're doing. 1-877-DOC-DALI, 1-877-DOC-DALI. One of my listeners had months ago told me they were having issues with airlines because they were overweight and they were trying to buy a second seat. And some airlines were not necessarily hospitable to that. Well, interestingly, there's a report from a British lady, Kirsty Leanne, and she said she has issues. She's plus sized, and when it comes to buying a second seat, it's not as easy as you think. She will try to purchase a seat next to her to have extra room, but oftentimes she doesn't get that seat, or the airlines will take it away because they need it for another passenger, or the plane flight changes, she gets moved to a new flight, and then the two seats that she bought next to each other are not next to each other. So it's really hard if you're trying to sit in a seat next to you for extra room if the seat is about 4 rows away. She has, however, been able to get upgraded to business class because of snafus that have to do with her extra seat. But, you know, our planes and our travel are not very hospitable to people who are overweight. Sadly, I think she's gotten many, shall we say, remarks and comments telling her to lose weight. But we have a situation where our population is way more heavier than it's ever been. And many of our planes and our seat belts and a lot of the safety measures that many of our forms of travel have are designed for average weighing individuals. I see these memes where somebody 300 pounds has a 49-pound suitcase and they're able to go on, yet a 110-pound individual with the 51-pound suitcase has an issue. Well, the suitcases, it's because of people hurting themselves, the baggage handlers. So it's not necessarily about the total weight of the plane. But buying an extra seat, definitely want to check with the airlines because sometimes they're not equipped for that. 1-877-DOC-DALI. Don't go away.
Can you believe, with all the recent violent protests, looting, and destruction, some areas are considering either defunding or abolishing the police? At a time when America's neighborhoods need the protection of police the most, some elected officials would rather create more chaos by playing politics. If you're sick of elected officials caving in to demands of the radical left, you're not alone. It's time we stand up and declare our support for local police. The majority of police officers are important partners in protecting our God-given rights. If you prefer freedom over chaos, then learn how you can help protect the local police that serve your community. Call today and request your free Support Your Local Police info packet. Dial 800-JBS-USA-1. That's 800-JBS-USA-1. Request your free Support Your Local Police info packet by calling 800-JBS-USA-1 today.